Greetings to you all, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our special video of the Technology Enhanced Language Learning module. If I'm going to talk about what I've learned in the lesson, one of my favorite lessons came into mind. That was the Week 9's lesson about digital assessments. It is undeniable that students must complete a certain kind of assessments to check whether, to what extent did they understand what they have learned. Sometimes a test can determine their future, including IELTS or TOEFL, English tests, which they need to complete if they want to study either in an international university or overseas. So if you want to develop a digital assessment application, what kind of factors should we consider? A research proposed by Dr. Cyril Weir of the University of Bedfordshire introduced something called socio-cognitive framework. Let's break that down. First, test taker characteristics. This is about the test taker's demographics, which is age, gender, experience, and so on. Researchers need to be aware of who is taking the test and what will the score be used to do. Next, cognitive process. This is to deal with whether students taking the test go through the same learning process when they take the test. For example, which thinking skills are involved? Are there any remembrance skills involved? Etc. Now, context validity. This concerns with how the task given relates to the way test takers use the language. Scoring. It is important for developers to check if the scores are reliable and if the scores reflect how important the studies are. If students were to receive a certain mark, it needs to be made sure if it's genuine or not. Moving on to consequences. Developers need to be aware if the digital tests are useful or not to the lesson. And last but not least, criterion related. It's true that anyone can develop an English digital assessment, but what makes this criterion related digital assessment stand out is the grading criteria and scores match the other genuine tests and can accurately determine the level of English proficiency for test takers. Now that we all know what we need to be aware of when developing a digital test, let's discuss the pros and cons of it. Let's start with its benefits. For people taking the test, digital assessment is fast. It is very flexible, since you can basically take it anywhere. It doesn't cost too much, and there will be no biases whatsoever. Some programs also offer a good security. For teachers, it is convenient to keep data. It is way more accurate when the computer marks. It is easily accessible and flexible. It reduces the use of paper to a great extent, and it is a very useful tool to motivate learners. So what are the challenges? First of all, technical problems. If test takers face connection problems or their computers decide to shut down during the test, the whole test is gone. Next, academic integrity. Since the internet is easily accessible, it is also super easy to cheat and to access uncertified or unreliable sources. Access and equity. Not every student can access state-of-the-art computer devices. There will be severe consequences to this, including class division and stress. And lastly, measuring learning outcomes. This can be challenging since there are no direct observation and little interaction with students. As a future English instructor, I will need to take the pros and cons of digital assessments into account. I know I did criticize a lot about online assessment, but don't get me wrong, I would still love to utilize this in my future teaching. But there are several adjustments needed. I think that it would be better to come up with a hybrid assessment. For example, I would develop a digital assessment on vocabulary, grammar, and reading skills, but definitely not on speaking or writing skills, which I need close observation and interaction. As in equity and accessibility, I will provide devices for my students and run a tutorial about how to use those devices before the test dates. And that's it for the video. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday.